Some crimes are so disturbing, so deeply unsettling, that they refuse to be forgotten. Despite decades of investigation, advanced forensic technology, and countless dedicated detectives, certain murder cases remain frustratingly, hauntingly unsolved. These are not just cold cases buried in dusty filing cabinets. They are open wounds in the history of justice, cases that continue to grip the public imagination and keep investigators awake at night. From mutilated bodies discovered in broad daylight to cryptic messages left by killers who seem to enjoy the chase, these mysteries have defied every attempt at resolution. Today we are counting down 10 of the most chilling unsolved murder cases in history. Cases that shocked nations, dominated headlines, and forever changed how we think about crime and justice. From the streets of Victorian London to modern American suburbs, these stories will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about justice. Let us begin. Kicking off our countdown at number 10 is one of the most haunting murder cases in American history, the Black Dahlia murder. On January 15, 1947, a passerby stumbled upon the brutally mutilated body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short in a vacant lot in Los Angeles, California. What made this discovery truly horrifying was the condition of the crime scene. Elizabeth's body had been completely severed at the waist, drained of all blood, and posed with surgical precision. Her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth, creating a grotesque smile. Investigators were stunned. The press immediately descended, and within days the case had captured the attention of the entire nation. Newspapers ran front-page stories daily, dubbing her the Black Dahlia. It became one of the most publicized murder investigations America had ever witnessed, and tragically, one that would never be solved. The investigation into Elizabeth Short's murder became one of the most exhaustive in Los Angeles history. The LAPD questioned over 150 suspects, chasing leads that stretched across the country. Despite the massive scale of the investigation and relentless media coverage that kept the public gripped for months, detectives never gathered enough evidence to charge anyone. The case slowly went cold, buried under a mountain of dead ends and unreliable tips. Over the following decades, more than 500 people actually confessed to the murder, yet none of these confessions held up under scrutiny. Various theories emerged pointing to doctors, Hollywood figures, and even law enforcement insiders. Some investigators believed the killer had surgical knowledge due to the precise nature of the mutilation. To this day, no confirmed killer has ever been identified, leaving the Black Dahlia case one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Moving up our list to number 9, we encounter one of the most terrifying and mysterious killers in American history, the Zodiac Killer. Operating in Northern California during the late 1960s and early 1970s, this unidentified predator is confirmed to have claimed at least 5 lives, though he himself boasted of killing as many as 37 people. What made the Zodiac particularly chilling was not just the murders themselves, but his deliberate and calculated taunting of both investigators and the public. He sent a series of cryptic letters and elaborately coded ciphers directly to newspapers and police departments, daring authorities to catch him. These messages contained disturbing details about his crimes, twisted riddles and coded symbols that baffled even the most experienced cryptographers. The Zodiac seemed to relish the fear he created, turning his killing spree into a terrifying public spectacle that gripped all of California. The Zodiac Killer triggered one of the most massive manhunts in California history. Law enforcement agencies across Northern California worked tirelessly to identify the mysterious killer, interviewing hundreds of potential suspects over the years. One of the most prominent suspects was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted sex offender whose behavior, handwriting samples, and personal history raised serious red flags among investigators. Despite compelling circumstantial evidence, DNA and fingerprint analysis ultimately failed to conclusively link Allen to the crimes. In 1969, a team of cryptographers successfully decoded one of the Zodiac's 4 ciphers, revealing a disturbing message about the killer's twisted psychology. However, 3 remaining ciphers went unsolved for decades, with one finally cracked in 2020. Even today, questions surrounding the Zodiac's true identity remain unanswered, keeping this deeply unsettling case alive in books, documentaries, and countless online communities dedicated to solving the mystery. Moving to number 8 on our list, we have one of the most heartbreaking and widely discussed cold cases in American history, The murder of JonBenét Ramsey. JonBenét was just 6 years old, a bright and beloved little girl who had already made a name for herself in the child beauty pageant circuit. On December 26, 1996, the morning after Christmas, her mother Patsy Ramsey called 911 from their home in Boulder, Colorado, reporting that her daughter was missing and that a ransom note had been found. Hours later, JonBenét's body was discovered in the basement of the family's own home. She had been strangled and struck on the head. The case exploded into a national media frenzy almost overnight. Television networks ran wall-to-wall coverage, and the entire country became consumed by the haunting image of this little girl, sparking fierce public debate about what truly happened inside that house. From the very beginning, suspicion fell heavily on JonBenét's parents, John and Patsy Ramsey. Investigators noted troubling inconsistencies in their statements, and the ransom note discovered inside the home raised immediate red flags. Experts pointed out that the note was unusually long, written on paper found within the house, and contained details that seemed oddly personal, rather than the work of an outside intruder. For years, public opinion largely viewed the family with deep suspicion, and the media scrutiny was relentless and unforgiving. However, in 2008, DNA testing on foreign genetic material found on JonBenét's clothing pointed to an unidentified male with no connection to the Ramsey family, officially clearing them. Patsy had already passed away from cancer 2 years prior. Rather than solving the case, the DNA evidence simply introduced a new unknown suspect, leaving investigators exactly where they started, searching for answers that remained frustratingly out of reach. Coming in at number 7, we have one of the most shocking murders in music history. The night of September 7, 1996, Las Vegas was electric. Iconic rapper Tupac Shakur had just attended the Mike Tyson vs. Bruce Seldon boxing match at the MGM Grand, a night that should have been nothing more than a celebration. But as Tupac rode through the Las Vegas Strip in a black BMW, a white Cadillac pulled alongside the vehicle and unleashed a barrage of bullets. Tupac was struck multiple times and the scene instantly descended into chaos. Rushed to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada, doctors fought desperately to save his life. For 6 agonizing days, the world held its breath. On September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur passed away at just 25 years old, leaving millions of heartbroken fans and an entire music industry in complete disbelief. The theories surrounding Tupac's murder run deep and wide. Many believe the killing was orchestrated by members of the Blood Street Gang, possibly connected to rival rapper Notorious B.I.G. and Death Row Records' enemies. Others point fingers at music industry figures with financial motives, while some conspiracy theorists even implicate corrupt law enforcement officials. Former Los Angeles Police Department detective Greg Kading claimed through his investigations that a Death Row Records associate ordered the hit. Despite dozens of witnesses being present that September night in Las Vegas, the case remained frustratingly cold for nearly 3 decades. Investigators interviewed numerous people, but never gathered sufficient evidence to formally charge anyone. Then, in 2023, Las Vegas police executed a search warrant on Dwayne Keith Davis, a suspected gang member, briefly reigniting public hope. However, no charges followed, leaving Tupac's murder still officially unsolved, a painful wound for his devoted fans worldwide. Moving on to number 6, we have a case so disturbing it earned its own haunting nickname, the Zodiac of the East. The Long Island serial killer, often referred to as Lisk, is an unidentified murderer believed to be responsible for at least 10 deaths. The case first broke open in December 2010, when human remains were discovered along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach on Long Island, New York. What began as a search for a missing woman quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. As investigators combed the area, they uncovered multiple sets of remains scattered across the desolate stretch of highway. The discovery sent shockwaves through the local community, leaving residents deeply unsettled and fearful. Almost overnight, this quiet coastal region became the center of one of the most complex and haunting serial killer investigations in recent American history, with answers frustratingly out of reach. Many of the Long Island serial killer's victims were sex workers who had advertised their services online, making them particularly vulnerable and, tragically, less prioritized by authorities at the time. What made this case even more disturbing were the chilling phone calls the killer made to the family of one victim, Shannon Gilbert, using her own phone, taunting those desperately searching for answers. Despite years of investigation involving advanced forensic technology, DNA analysis, and extensive law enforcement resources, no suspect has ever been officially identified or charged. The case exposed deeply troubling gaps in how police departments handle missing persons reports involving marginalized communities. In response to widespread criticism, significant reforms were introduced, pushing law enforcement agencies across the country to treat all victims with equal urgency and dignity, regardless of their profession or background, ensuring their stories would no longer go unheard. Now we arrive at number 5, the Axeman of New Orleans. Cast your mind back to 1918 and 1919, when the vibrant city of New Orleans was gripped by absolute terror. A shadowy killer was breaking into homes under the cover of darkness, attacking sleeping victims with a razor-sharp axe. The murders were brutal, the motive unclear, and the killer completely invisible to investigators. Panic spread through every neighborhood as residents barricaded their doors each night, fearing they could be next. Then something truly extraordinary happened. A letter appeared in local newspapers, signed by the killer himself. He claimed to be a demon straight from the hottest hell and made an astonishing promise. On a specific Tuesday night, he would spare every home where jazz music was being played. That night, New Orleans played music like never before. The Axeman was never identified. Moving to number 4, we have one of the strangest unsolved cases in history, the Somerton Man. In December 1948, a well-dressed unidentified man was discovered dead on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia. He carried absolutely no identification, no wallet, no documents, nothing that could reveal who he was or where he came from. But tucked deep inside a hidden pocket of his trousers was a tiny torn scrap of paper bearing 2 words, Tamam Shud, meaning ended or finished in Persian, taken from a rare edition of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Authorities were completely baffled. His cause of death could not be officially confirmed, with no clear signs of trauma or common poisoning detected. Despite decades of relentless investigation by Australian authorities and independent researchers worldwide, the man's true identity has never been established, cementing this case as one of history's most deeply haunting and unresolvable cold cases. Investigators discovered a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam linked to the case, containing a series of handwritten letters believed to be an encrypted code that has never been fully deciphered. A phone number inside the book led to a woman, later identified only as Jo Thompson, who denied knowing the man despite displaying a visibly shaken reaction when shown his plaster cast. Her connection to the case has fueled decades of speculation. Recent DNA advancements have offered partial breakthroughs. In 2022, forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick and her team suggested the man may have had European ancestry, possibly from the United States or Eastern Europe. Some researchers believe he could have been a spy caught in Cold War tensions. Yet, despite these developments, his true name, his purpose in Adelaide, and the exact cause of his death remain completely unknown, cementing the Somerton Man as one of history's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Coming in at number 3 is a case that makes even the Zodiac Killer seem restrained. Meet the Cleveland Torso Murderer, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Between 1934 and 1938, this unidentified killer unleashed a reign of terror across Cleveland, Ohio, dismembering at least 12 victims and leaving their decapitated, mutilated remains scattered throughout Kingsbury Run, a poverty-stricken neighborhood already struggling through the Great Depression. The killer's surgical precision suggested medical knowledge, yet investigators never pinned down a suspect. What makes this case even more remarkable is who failed to solve it. Elliot Ness, the legendary lawman celebrated for bringing down Al Capone and dismantling organised crime, was serving as Cleveland's safety director during this very period. Despite his formidable reputation and relentless efforts, the Mad Butcher completely eluded him, vanishing without ever being identified, leaving behind one of America's most disturbing and enduring cold cases. And now we arrive at number 2, perhaps the most infamous name in the history of crime. Jack the Ripper. In the autumn of 1888, the Whitechapel district of London became the hunting ground for a killer unlike anything the world had ever seen. At least 5 women, All sex workers struggling to survive in one of England's most impoverished neighbourhoods were brutally murdered and mutilated with surgical precision. The crime sent shockwaves through Victorian England and beyond. But what truly elevated this case into legend was the killer's audacity. He taunted police with chilling letters, most notably the infamous Dear Boss letter, where he gleefully described his crimes and promised more. That letter also gave the world his name, Jack the Ripper. Over 130 years later, his identity remains unknown, cementing his place as arguably the most famous unsolved murder case in all of human history. Over more than a century, investigators and historians have proposed dozens of suspects in the Jack the Ripper case. These range from local Whitechapel figures to shocking claims involving members of the British royal family, including Prince Albert Victor. Some theories even pointed to prominent surgeon Sir William Gull. Each suspect brought new theories but never definitive proof. Then came modern forensic science. In 2019, a DNA study analysed evidence from a shawl allegedly found near one of the victims. Researchers claimed the genetic material pointed to Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant and barber who had long been considered a prime suspect by Victorian investigators. However, the scientific community remains deeply divided. Critics questioned the shawl's chain of custody and potential contamination over 130 years. Ripper enthusiasts worldwide continue debating the findings passionately. The identity of Jack the Ripper, it seems, refuses to be quietly buried. From the fog of Victorian London to the sun-soaked streets of Los Angeles, we have journeyed through 9 of history's most haunting unsolved murders. Each case a reminder that behind the headlines and theories are real human beings whose lives were cut tragically short, and families still waiting for answers that may never come. The detectives, the breakthroughs, the dead ends, all leading us here to the case that sits above them all. Number 1 on our list takes us back to the summer of 1912, to the quiet, unassuming town of Villisca, Iowa. On the night of June 9th, 1912, 8 people, including 6 young children, were found brutally murdered in their beds. The entire nation recoiled in horror. A peaceful farming community had become the site of one of the most savage and mysterious mass murders in American history. Who did this and why? The investigation that followed was riddled with missteps and dead ends. Multiple suspects emerged over the years, but perhaps the most startling development came when Reverend Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly, a travelling minister, actually confessed to the murders. Despite this confession, he was tried twice and ultimately acquitted, leaving justice frustratingly out of reach. Without modern forensic technology like DNA analysis, fingerprint databases, or digital surveillance, investigators were essentially working blind. Evidence was mishandled, the crime scene was compromised, and crucial details were lost forever. Today, the Villisca house still stands as a chilling reminder of that horrific night. Preserved as a museum, it draws thousands of visitors annually and has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted locations in all of America. Paranormal investigators and curious tourists alike walk those same halls, keeping the memory of 8 innocent victims painfully, powerfully alive. These 10 cases remind us that justice is not always guaranteed, no matter how advanced our technology becomes or how dedicated our investigators are. Behind every cold case file are real human beings, sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, whose lives were stolen and whose families have spent years, sometimes decades, waiting for answers that never came. That silence is perhaps the heaviest burden of all. What these mysteries reveal is something deeply uncomfortable about our world. Evil can exist without consequence, and sometimes the truth stays buried. Yet we keep searching, because the human need for answers, for closure, for justice never fades. If this video moved you, please hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts and subscribe so you never miss an upload. There are countless more chilling unsolved mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and we are just getting started.